What is your strangest wrong number story? Story 1. I got a call at like 6 a.m., and I was still sleeping, so I kind of didn't understand what was happening, but this person was so excited to tell me that they got the new job, and they recognized I was still half asleep, so they said they'd call me back later, and said I love you. I just said, I love you too, I'm glad you got the job. I absolutely did not know that person and they never called back, but I think of that call all the time. Story 2. An old friend of mine got a wrong number text from a mother responding to an ad about a used electric wheelchair for her child. For some reason, he got a lot of wrong number texts. He would usually have a little fun with the sender before telling they had the wrong number, and share it on social media. But this time, he didn't mess with her, obviously. He posted it on social media and asked around if anyone knew where to find a used electric wheelchair. The mother couldn't afford a new one. It got a lot of attention, but nobody could find one for sale. After a couple days of no luck, anonymous donors bought and donated to them a brand new electric wheelchair. More heartwarming than strange, but a good story either way. Story 3. When I was 10-ish, before caller ID was common, I got a call from some drunk guy, probably college age or a bit older, begging me to take him back. He must have been trying to call his ex-girlfriend and dialed my number by mistake, and was already pretty hysterical by the time I answered the phone. He barely let me get a word in, and I was pretty frozen with shock, so the call went on for at least a couple minutes. My mom finally asked me who was on the phone. I just shrugged, so she took the phone out of my hands right as he was accusing me of banging his friends. We still laugh about that story now. Story 4. I called a wrong number when I was in high school. I am a male and 43 now, and a teen girl answered. We quickly realized it was a wrong number but started having a little fun banter. She seemed really cool and funny, and so we kept talking. I asked her what she was doing and she said she was watching O.J. Simpson in a police car chase on TV. I turned it on too, and together we talked for an hour and watched the slow-speed chase of O.J. in the back of the white Bronco. At the end, we laughed that we had shared that together and then said goodbye. I don't remember her name or anything, but it was a really memorable night. Story 5. I was home from college for Christmas break around 2014, and ended up chilling downtown with a few buddies from high school who were also in town for the holidays. While hanging out, I received a group text with a bunch of numbers I didn't recognize. The message was a group picture with people who were obviously at a Christmas party. I made the only logical choice and immediately sent a selfie back with the message wrong number. The rest of the people in this text absolutely loved this and responded with hahaha and you're kinda cute texts, until one person said you should come to our Christmas party. The party was only a few blocks away from where I was hanging out, so I left my friends and went to the party. I find the apartment, walk in, and it had a record scratch moment like from a cheesy 90s movie. Everyone goes silent, stares at me. I am the only white person there. After a few seconds the host shatters the silence with the shout, "It's wrong number, guy." We end up doing shots and partying for the next few hours. By far the best wrong number experience ever. Story 6. A couple years ago, I got a group text message about where we were all going to meet up for a New Year's Eve party. Not knowing anyone in the text, I sent a text saying they were missing one of their friends and didn't want her to be angry she didn't get invited. I received an effusive apology and sent back a no problem and y'all have fun at your party. And deleted the conversation. A day later I got another group text with an invite to the nice wrong number person. They'd apparently found the right person and then had a talk and decided to invite me along. Ha ha. I sent back an thanks, but the last time I stayed up past 11 o'clock was in my 40s. Ha ha. I thought it was very sweet of them to invite me though. Story 7. Back in my community college days I had a pretty tight clique, but we lost touch when I transferred to university. After that I did an MA, so I was gone quite a while. The rest of them stayed tight. Well, when I moved back to town after finishing my MA, I was invited to a New Year's Eve party by one of my old friends. At this party was Gina, a girl I had a crush on, but never got anywhere with. A few years later we had a pretty good time at the party, and ended up in the same car home. So we were in the back seat and started fooling around. She got out at her stop, and I went home. Next day I wake up with a massive headache and a text message from someone I didn't know saying things like, "If you fucking touch my girl again, I will break your arms." I texted back, "I'm not so sure she's your girl." The response, "Wait, 206 area code? Where is that?" "Seattle." Sorry dude, wrong number." "Okay." I never saw Gina again though. Story 8. A picture was sent to me from a group of numbers I'd never seen before. I opened the message and it was photo of a white family standing around a casket. There was a sign behind the casket that read, "We'll miss you," and Sandy, it gave me the chills, but I had no idea what to say. I had no idea who they were. I left it on read and went about my day. Later that night, someone from that group texted, "You didn't show up, the least you could do is text your condolences to your family." I went downstairs, took a selfie with my black grandfather and Guatemalan grandmother and said, "My condolences, but I do believe you have the wrong number." One person sent a single and hashtag 128514 emoji and another person replied, "I am so sorry." Never heard from them again. Hope they were able to find whatever family member that played funeral hooky though. Story 9. Got a call from an older dude, told him wrong number and the exchange went as follows. Me, sorry wrong number. Him, oh alright, sorry to bother you. Me, okay B. Him, how are you? Me, good you? Him, I'm alright. Me, alright, well gotta go bye. He sounded lonely so I felt bad, but I was just so thrown off and had no idea what to say. Story 10. My grandmother, RIP, got a call like that when I was a kid, 35 plus years ago. My grandmother was somewhat disabled due to a stroke, so she spent a lot of time in a chair and watched TV. She got a call one night from another elderly lady asking to speak to Vera. Well, just so happens that was my grandmother's name. Well, the lady started going on and on about her son and his family and how they don't call until my grandmother realized she had the wrong number. Anyway, my grandmother and this lady talked for nearly an hour that night. Couple days later the lady called again and said it was so nice talking to my grandmother she decided to call again. Again, they had an hour or so conversation. The lady called my grandmother at least 2 to 3 times a week for about 3 years until the lady passed. A random call cheered up 2 people. If you made it this far, please consider pressing the subscribe and like button. Now continue to the video. Story 11. Back in the day, when you moved house, British Telecom would leave you with the same number as the previous owner. As a result, when we bought a house we had a lot of calls meant for the previous owner, Susan. After about a year later, the calls had petered out, until one Sunday morning I answered a call from a cheery-sounding old dear who asked if Susan was there. "Oh, I'm sorry, Susan doesn't live here anymore." She sounded confused. How long had she been gone? "Well, we've lived here a year, and I think the house had been vacant for a couple of months before that." The old duck had shifted from confused to panicked now, but I only spoke to her last week. It reminded me of those old ghost tales that end with an old farmer saying something like, "There's been no one living there these past 50 years. It took a little while to calm her down sufficiently to find out she had dialed the wrong number and was after an entirely different Susan. Story 12. So, I got this group text about a break room installation. It showed snacks, coffee, etc. It looked beautiful. I responded with a text of my office break room. It was sad sight. No coffee or snacks. I got a response about how it was a company who does that service. We scheduled a visit to my office to sample the snacks and coffee. The branch manager loved the coffee. He ordered a completed redo of our break room, snacks, coffee, etc. I don't work there anymore, but... Story 13. Got a call from a government agency, FDA maybe? Anyway, the first thing the lady says to me is, "We got a call that you have a problem with goats?" I'm like, "No, sorry, wrong number." "Are you sure you don't have a goat problem?" "Nope." "Okay, thanks, sorry about the confusion." Story 14. I had a little old lady call me 3 different times to reach her friend who was all alone for the first Mother's Day. She had this rich, joyous voice with Southern accent blended with her Jamaican accent. She talked to me about her grandson that was her pride and joy. She was thrilled to hear stories of my wee ones on Mother's Day. We shared some great stories and laughs. Each call Sue and I had a lovely chat and reviewed the phone numbers. She just kept getting that pesky area code wrong. She kept saying God wanted us to chat. It was a great moment. Story 15. Horror. Are you picking the boys up Friday? Mean yes, why wouldn't I be? Horror. You said you weren't sure. Me no I didn't. Wait, who is this? Horror. Ashley. Me yeah you have the wrong number. Me and my kids are on the same schedule as you and your ex though. This is weird. It went in a little longer I think, but that was a summary of it. We were both argumentative when we thought we were talking to our exes, then we had a laugh about it. Story 16. A man with the same zip code as family called me repeatedly. We spoke. I told him I wasn't who he was asking about. He called back. Now I usually don't answer if the number isn't already in my phone. But I answered this time. I knew from a few short calls he was an old man. By the sound of him I could tell he was from NYC because I lived in New York as a kid. He told me he got my number from a pay website that finds records for people. Mine was the only number they gave him. He seemed genuine, and while I was suspicious I felt a sense of urgency in him. If I was being scammed, he was the best I'd ever heard. He claimed he was WW2 combat veteran. Whatever else I thought about not being sure kinda evacuated me at that point. I asked him if he had gotten an address. He had the web search, gave him just one. Conveniently enough only 20-minute drive from where I lived. Next county over. I had made plans to eat breakfast with friends, but I offered to check out the address he'd given me. He was elated, and in disbelief. He knew what he was asking for was crazy, to call the wrong guy and get help? Crazy proposition for a New Yorker to go in on. The old man gave me the name of this friend he was trying to track down. They served together in WW2 and no one heard back from him. They had missed him at the reunions and wasn't answering letters. No one could reach him. They tried calling him, but the phone just rang for minutes on end. No one ever answered. During breakfast I make my friends aware of my intended plans, to meet a stranger, on the request of another stranger. They relay the obvious concerns, scam, setup, murder plot, but, at that time, I was in my mid-20s and intent on going. My brother asks to come along, and we head out just after noon. We find an apartment at the address given. A man working on his car out front of the apartment makes eye contact as we pull in. I ask him if he knows whether someone is living in the apartment. There is, an old man. His nurse comes almost daily but doesn't know much more than that. The apartment is ground floor, 20 feet from the curb. The entrance in an end unit with a walk-up that's outside while the rest share a common hall. The guy has full view of me standing there knocking for what felt like an eternity. Why the hell did I drive all the way here? I knock loudly. To which I get a yell, a harumph even, ah yes she already came today. Confused, I call out and say something to the effect that I'm here on a separate matter. I begin to explain my purpose for my visit, to inform him he has people concerned over his well-being and are desperate to reach him. He agrees to come to the door, which takes a long time. He opens the door and his eyes are pure white with cataracts, completely blind with no doubt. I can't see you, he belted. I'm aware, I tell him. After a lengthy explanation, which I repeat multiple times, he finally grasps it, but he's a bit surprised and not sure he trusts me, but he lets me inside. I get a look at him as he motions me past him towards the interior. He's probably 90 or older and his clothes drape over him. There is plenty of room, and it's near empty, save for one wingback chair of indeterminate color, and an ottoman that's been taped together with every no charity of tape, packing tape, medical tape, athletic tape, electric tape, duct tape, metal fucking tape. It's all tape, tape for days and days. He made his way to his chair. I moved the phone to his side tape. Yeah, it's a rotary. I tell him I'm going out front to make a call, and signal to my brother that I still have my skin on. He sits in his chair and call from the front stoop. The man who'd set this into motion is elated to find his war buddy ain't dead, and thanks me profusely again. I ask him to call the house. The number had always been correct, but the blind old guy could never navigate to the kitchen in time to answer the call. I'm back by the phone, it's not ringing. I tell him to pick up when it rings. I remind the old man to lock the door, and tell him I'm leaving. He probably won't, but it's how I make my exit known. I close the door hard so he hears me step out. Before I leave the stoop, I wait for the ring, the answer, and I'll leave. Years later, the caller calls me back. It's the guy's wife this time. She's again trying to find a number. She's trying to reach the blind man. Her husband is now in the early stages of dementia and wishes for them to talk on last time. I had kept the envelope I had used to take notes from his first call all this time. Luckily, I had the number. She thanked me. I felt, and still feel, very fortunate for being able to help them. Story 17. Years ago, while I was living at home, I got a phone line for my computer. Yeah, I'm old, but also had a phone connected to it, because phones are cheap. My parents' room was all the way across the house and upstairs, so they'd call me sometimes instead of walking all that way. One day, in our sleepy little town, some guy killed his wife, shot his kid, and drove into town shooting at random people and buildings. He was killed in a shootout with police at the main intersection in town. He happened to have the same first name as me. At some point during the investigation, they contacted my mom, because she'd made a call to his house shortly before he went on his rampage. As it turns out, his phone number was the same as mine, but with the last 2 digits reversed. My mom called him that day, and just said, "First name, get up here, I need help." Then she hung up. Since I never showed up, she got my brother to help her with whatever it was, and forgot about it until the cops showed up asking how she knew the crazy guy. Story 18. Every Friday for a while I would get a text message asking if we're having a fire and hanging out. One day I decide to say yeah sure, swing by and pick me up and we'll get some stuff and have a good time. I didn't hear anything back that night or nothing until next Friday. The message was same time same place like last week. I replied, you bet, make sure you swing by first. After that I never heard from them again, haha. I hoped I made a good night for them, ahaha. Story 19. I got a call from an unknown caller who thought I was banging his wife. He was threatening to come beat my ass. I spent a good 20 minutes getting him to realize that he didn't know who I was, where I lived, or anything else about me, and that I had no clue who either of them were either. In the end, he seemed a bit calmer and more rational. Hopefully he didn't go beat anyone up after. Story 20. I learned my lesson about going along with a stranger who's texting my phone thinking I'm someone else. It's all fun and games until they send you an unsolicited close-up of their butthole and you damn near spit your dinner out all over the table. Story 21. We, as teenagers, used to use a copper wire touching off the microphone within the handset and touch it repeatedly in the pattern of the number you wish to dial off the body of public phones, Coinbox phone, to get past the payment system. We once decided to go full Monty and dial a number in the USA. We live in Dublin, Ireland. We got the international code, the country code, the area code, New York, and made up a number. We tapped out the number with the wire, waited a moment and heard the magic ringing tone in the handset. We had done it. Then the phone was answered, hello, McDonald's. The only problem was the girl who answered had the strongest Dublin accent we ever heard. Okay, we failed then. We were quite disappointed until she repeated hello. McDonald's, White Plains, or something similar. Turns out she was the sister of a guy in my class in school and had only been in New York for a week and had only started her job there that day. I was able to go into school next day and tell the guy I was talking to his sister in New York and about her new job. It was a fun little misadventure. Story 22. I posted this one a while back. I was playing poker with my boys a few years back. We finished up around 1 a.m. on a Sat night, Sunmorn technically. My phone rings. Woman, your son has been sending nude pictures to my daughter and this needs to stop right now. Me, ma'am, my son is 8 years old. If he's sending naked pictures to your daughter, we both have a big problem on our hands. Woman, realizing it's not the right number. OMG, I'm so sorry, I got the wrong number. Me, yeah, I figured as much. Good luck with getting that all sorted out. I laughed so fucking hard after I hung up. This is why I answer any call that comes to my phone. I could have missed out on this gem.